Hey everybody, it's Andrew. Just wanted to give you a quick heads up that the video you are about to watch is full of information that comes at a pretty quick pace. So get a pen and paper, sit down and prepare to listen closely, rewind if you have to, and write down whatever sounds interesting. Thanks for watching. Enjoy. Bye. Hey everybody, happy May. I cannot tell you how excited I am to be sharing this video with you. The only thing that would make this better is if we could be doing it live. But we all know why that is not necessarily the best option given my current location and the current lack of stable internet service. So I am recording this for you for the May energy update, which I have not done one in several months. And this one feels really important this month. And I have been getting the nudge for the past couple of days to do something, to share something. I've got a lot of information for you in this video. Get a pen, get a paper, because school is in session, my friends. There is so much information that I have for you. Now, some of this is going to be complete ideas. Some of this is going to be fragments and thoughts. A lot of this is stuff that has been coming into my awareness since around this time last year. Some of this I've shared in different ways. Some of this may not necessarily be new information, but as things continue to shift and grow and evolve in our experience, and as I continue to reach new levels of self and understanding, I have some context for this month's video that I hope will begin to connect some dots for you, because what I am sharing with you is a combination of what has come through in my own meditation, my own communication with my guides, with my team, whatever has been coming through in client sessions, and then just a little bit of stuff that I've just been picking up. It's like in the air right now, man. There is so much happening right now. I'm sure it's of no surprise to any of you. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's May Energy Update. Also, be sure to check out the link that I have in the bio for the description for the event that's coming up day after tomorrow, Sunday, May 9th. It's the 3-part Void series, releasing the constructed self, much of which today's knowledge and information that I am sharing is related to that. And it's interesting that, I get these nudges or these sort of themes for workshops or for meditation groups or sphere healing groups or whatever I'm doing. And I'm often given like, okay, this is sort of the theme or the focus for each one. And I personally have been going through quite the transformation over the past couple of months. Suffice it to say, pretty much in April, last part of March and most of April, I was just shredded. I mean, I was completely ripped apart in terms of these old layers of identity and these old programs and beliefs that I was hanging on to. And Spirit was just saying, honey, please, come on. It's time. We gotta let this go. It's time to move on. It's time to elevate. It's time to level up. So much of what I'm sharing comes on the heels of that. And so when I created the event, Releasing the Constructed Self, I thought, oh, well, of course, like I'm coming out of this really intense pressure cooker of having been in this void experience, like the deep end of the void experience for quite some time. And so I thought, well, of course, now I have some new information to share since I've been traveling into these void spaces. And that is true. And then also there are some bigger layers that have popped. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. Now, I have my notes in front of me, so if you see me like glancing up and down, I'm not being shady, I'm not being sketchy. I'm just trying to make sure that I deliver the information as it was given to me, because much of this came through the lighted ones and came through Osiris. And again, some of it came through people's sessions and via other people. First of all, though, I want to share with you my new thing. I don't know why I want to share this with you, but I'm loving this. So I love kombucha. This is not a paid advertisement, by the way. This is just my little recipe. I love kombucha, but sometimes I have a hard time paying like $75 an ounce for this juice, this drink. So I make my own. I do a little bit of soda water, like bubble water. I do a little bit of grated ginger. I do a squeeze of lime, and then I add some apple cider vinegar. Oh my God. It is like instant kombucha probiotic tonic, and it tastes amazing. So if you're wondering why my glass is cloudy and there's all this funky stuff floating in there, that's ginger. So here we go. The title that I'm using for this one is The Intensity of May. Hang on to your hats, kids, because May is going to be one for the record books. And we're going to jump right down into it. So, the masculine is rising. The feminine has been risen, and that's why we're here. I'm going to share with you a little bit of my perspective on how I see the masculine and feminine energies working together. The feminine essentially, in my experience, says, and of course I'm oversimplifying here, But that's important so that we can get these really clear, concise nuggets of information and you can start to connect the dots for yourself, which I will encourage you to pay attention as you are listening to this information or as you are reviewing your notes. Pay attention to what's moving inside of you. Some of this information may not track with you. Some of this information may not resonate as true for you, and that's fine. I am offering everything up that I feel is important and that I have been guided to share. Take what feels true and leave the rest. You may come back to it another time and go, oh, actually now I understand that. You may have no understanding, but you have a sense of feeling of like, yeah, I don't know how I understand this, but I feel that it's true. Don't pay so much attention to the words that I'm saying. Pay attention also to the feeling and the energy and the impulses that you're receiving and what does it bring up for you when I'm sharing something. And even if you have to pause the video and sketch a few things down about, your own ideas or your own intel that's coming in as I'm sharing this with you, then do that. I am not here to tell you what is true. I am not here to tell you what to do. I am here to share the signposts that I have seen in the hopes that they will help light the path for you. Okay, so here we go. The masculine is rising. The feminine has been risen for a while now, and that's why we are here. The feminine, from my perspective, essentially she is the feeling, the sensing, the knowing, the concept, the inspiration, the epiphany, the idea, this is what I want my experience to be. She's rooted in the emotionality of it. She's rooted in the feeling, sensing, understanding of it on a deep, visceral, internal soul level. So the feminine essentially says, okay, this is what I want to create. Which, by the way, from my perspective, everything is feminine first. From my perspective, the eternal spirit is a feminine energy. I call her the eternal mother. So the feminine essentially is the beginning of everything. Everything, and we see this in biology, everything is feminine first. Even a fetus, regardless of what biology it is born as, it begins as a feminine being. So the feminine essentially says, okay, this is what I want. I want this experience. I want this feeling. I want this energy. I want this vibe. I want this vision. And then she essentially gives that list to the masculine. And the masculine goes out and says, okay, these are the things that I'm going to build. These are the things, the boundaries, the walls, the structures, the shapes, the systems. And that's essentially what the masculine does. Now, when the feminine has decided that she's ready to move on, as she has, the planet, the feminine energy of the planet, as well as the feminine spirit of all that is, they've said, you know what, we're done. This experiment, this level of consciousness, this timeline, this awareness that we have been in, this school that we have been learning in, we're done. It's time to move on. We know what we know. We learned what we learned, and now we're ready to evolve. When the feminine decides this, she is essentially then tearing it down. She essentially brings up that beautiful divine destruction, that chaos, that Kali energy, and she says, all right, we're ripping it down. We're tearing it down. This cannot stand anymore. And the feminine sets the bar. If the feminine says this is the new standard of what I'm going to create, or this is the new energetic level that I'm requiring to be a frequency of this creation, she's essentially saying you got to be this tall to ride this ride, right? That's sort of the requirement. So now the masculine comes in and he says, okay, she wants something new. We're doing it a different way. We're expanding the boundaries, or we're changing the geometry, or we're moving in a different direction. The masculine also, at the same time, gets to endure and witness the collapse and the destruction of what he had just built, because now the feminine is ready to shift. So for a lot of us, what is happening right now is the rise of the masculine. I want to be clear on that, because this is a much different experience and a much different energy than the rise of the feminine. The rise of the feminine is the transphysical. She is the etheric. She is the, mutable, formless, can't pin it down energy. The masculine is form. The masculine is boundary. The masculine is assertion. The masculine is shape and creating a structure. So where we are right now is the feminine has said, all right, we're done. This game is over. I'm tearing it all down. Time out, everybody. And now we are essentially seeing the masculine come back to life, the benevolent, balanced masculine frequencies coming back into all of us and the planet. And that's why things feel a little bit wonky right now, because let's be honest, we have had very few living examples of what masculine benevolence looks like. We have had very few examples of what a healthy, sovereign, independent, confident, assured, faithful, loving masculine energy has been. And so many of us are carrying these memories of the masculine experience, of the separated masculine, what I call the separated masculine. I don't think toxic masculine is appropriate. I don't even think imbalanced masculine is necessarily appropriate anymore. I call it the separated masculine because it is the idea that we see have been seeing perpetrated for the past several thousand years, that the masculine, or the male, because when I'm talking about feminine and masculine here, it has nothing to do with biology. But when we see the embodiment of that male energy in a male body, and we have these memories and these experiences, even in this lifetime, of it being violent and ugly and exclusive and aggressive and horrifying. So for most of us, many of us, we're still trying to figure out, how do I be in my masculine energy, doing what I came here to do, and also do it rooted in benevolence, compassion, kindness, and equanimity? There's a big key for May right here that I'm going to share with you. We cannot do this in our head. It must be lived because it's in the body. This is going to be a theme that you're going to see throughout this video, and this is going to be a theme that we are seeing play out throughout this year, but specifically in May, it's starting to really, really come to a head. It is in the body. It is in our physicality. It was woven into the planet. It is woven into our bodies. It is woven into our DNA. It is woven into the buildings and everything is carrying the memories of this old, dark, fractured, separate energy. And the message for you, if you take nothing else away from this is a message that's been coming through a lot in sessions. And Osiris has been saying this time and time again. In order to re-enter the natural world of divine law, one must return to the natural state of the divine self. I'm going to say that again. Write this down. In order to re-enter the natural world of divine law, one must return to the natural state of the divine self. Essentially, it's like you must be this tall to ride this ride. If your frequency internally has not reached a point where you can vibrate with divine law and natural order, it will become very, very clear to you where those inconsistencies and those deficiencies exist within you. Because you're going to see it. It's going to be the one sore spot. It's going to be the thing that has all the rough edges and makes you uncomfortable and they just can't figure out. That's your work. That shows you exactly where you can focus all of your loving intention and compassion. The next thing I'm going to share with you, and this is part of the matrix programming, and depending on where you are in your awareness, you may be able to see this as an observer and go, oh, yeah, that's the matrix, that's the programming. Or maybe if you have no idea what's going on and you are still sort of asleep or you've just awakened, you probably think that just life is really extra shitty right now. Well, there is a reason all of this is happening. Part of it is that false identities and choices are being forced. There is no them. There is only us. And I don't even have to tell you. How many times is this showing up in our experience? It's you and it's them. It's these people and it's those people. It's this race and it's that race. It's this party and it's that party. It's this gender and it's that gender. It's this person who has gotten a medical treatment and it's this person who hasn't gotten a medical treatment. It is this person who is wearing a mask and it is this person who isn't wearing a mask. The current version of matrix reality programming needs us to be divided in order for it to continue. It is a requirement for this program to function that we are separated. You cannot have a war if nobody shows up. The program is trying to force you to take a stand against your neighbor. And I don't even care if you live in the middle of nowhere with no neighbors. What I'm talking about here is the concept of the other, the concept of the neighbor, the concept of we have all had this idea shoved in our face that someone somewhere out there is doing something that's going to make your life miserable. Someone out there is doing something. They're not following a rule. They're not doing it the way that it should be. They're not honoring this thing or that thing, and it's going to harm you. So they're using fear, they're using division, and they're trying to create this experience where we are forced to take a stand against our neighbor. There are no sides. It is us. Think of it like a giant tribe. Think of us as a tribe of 7.5 billion people, which essentially we are. We are the Earth tribe. And just like in tribal cultures, it is the tribe who sorts out the differences that are going on within the tribe amongst themselves. There are tribunals, there are councils within the tribe that the tribe has decided are the groups of individuals or people who can speak for them, but they're not going out there seeking someone else to tell them what to do or to govern them. So here's the story. So it just so happens that some members of our tribe kind of went off the rails a few centuries ago. They decided that they didn't respect or honor our sovereignty as individuals, and they wanted to try and see what would happen if they could extricate themselves from the tribe and be the ruler. Right? Separated masculine. What happens if I say, no, I'm not you, I am in charge of you, I'm not part of the lowly masses, I am up here in this ivory tower, and I'm the one who's in charge now, and I get to tell you what to do? No. It is important for you to remember this. The sovereign, which you are, we are all sovereign. It is innate. We are born with it. It is part of who we are. Whether or not we believe it is up to us. Whether or not we exercise that authority as the sovereign is up to us. But whether or not we use it doesn't change the fact that it's true. So the sovereign does not require permission to be sovereign. That's the thing. I don't need anybody's permission to know that I am the center of the universe. And by the way, all particles are the center of the universe. We are the ones that can end this now if we all decided to stop participating in this false idea of us and them. I'll say it again. You can't have a war if nobody shows up to fight. The reason that it being in the body is so important, the reason that paying attention to the physicality and what's actually going on in the material world is so important is because, like Osiris says, we can't get away anymore with just reading books about flying. It's time to go fly. That is to say, are you living what you know is true? Don't tell me that you have not come upon some new knowings and some new understandings of who and what you are and what you came here to do over this past year and a half. It may not still be entirely clear, but I know without a doubt that every single person who is watching this, and even those who aren't, have had an experience in the past year and a half of going, oh, that's me. This is what I have to do. This is what is true for me. This is what I want to do. This is what it's time to leave or time to start or whatever. So, are you still thinking about hiding it? Are you still thinking and hiding your light under a bushel? Are you still living it in your head? Or are you actually doing it? Because here's the thing, and I talk about this all the time, the arc of energy is that it begins in the transphysical first and then moves down into density, and by the time it's in the physical realm, it's already old news. By the time it's in the physical realm, we have already talked about it and chanted about it and drummed about it and meditated about it and thought and healed and traveled and, shared and dreamed about it. It's been this beautiful, abstract, wonderful, energetic experience. However, what is required now is because it is in the physical, my friends, it's in the body. So what is required this time is to live it. This is the way that human experience is recorded in the Akashic records and in the earth grids, is through the physicality of living it. A human experience requires a physical lens. You can't be a human without a body. So that's why when you come to a human experience, part of the deal is that you go through it in a physical way. It's not abstract. It's not out there. Yes, it is energetic. Yes, it is emotional. Yes, it is transphysical, and it is also material. So when we're talking about what lives in the body, we are talking about cellular memory. We are talking about trauma loops that are passed down from generation to generation or that we experience in this lifetime and continue to replay. We're talking about neural pathways. We're talking about just what you pick up energetically and the ideas that are in the ether, right? It's what you've been steeping in. Think about your life as a human. Think about what you have experienced, even if you could say, well, I've had a relatively good life. And I've had a relatively pain-free or trauma-free life. And if you can say that, I know that there are still moments where you just feel like, oh, I can feel the tension in my body. I can feel the stuff in my body. And it's what we've been steeping in, right? It's what we grew up in. And especially 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, so much of this we didn't know, we didn't understand. And so it was just this sense of like, well, being a human is dense, being a human is heavy, being a human is hard, being a human is struggle, it's a slog. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. But these ideas still live in the body, and that's the only place that they live. They're not really out there anymore. We carry these frequencies and these memories in our body, and we project them, and we create that reality based upon what we've got going on inside. Whether or not it's actually true or happening out there is a different story. If any of you have watched RuPaul's Drag Race, season 13, I just watched it, and I know this seems totally random, but bear with me. So there were these two drag queens, Tamisha and Candy. And Tamisha and Candy did not get along on RuPaul's Drag Race. They butted heads, they fought, they were back and forth. Tamisha was calling her arrogant. Candy got really defensive, and there was this whole, a blow up. And of course, it's reality TV, so I'm sure that they stoked the fires. Anyway, so Tamisha went home pretty early in the season, and Candy, spoiler alert, Candy ended up making it to the final four. So by the time the entire season was over, at the end, like the reunion special, before the girls are announced as before the final episode where we announce the winner, there was this reunion episode. And in the reunion episode, each girl, or not each girl, but many of the girls did a song. They had recorded a song or a video or something that they wanted to share. And Tamisha recorded a track called Arrogant. And this track was a whole big spiel about her fight with Candy. It was all about it was just calling her out. It was a total bitch beef track. And Tamisha basically was resuscitating and resurrecting this beef with Candy. Well, throughout the whole season, that fight was ancient history. By the time we reached the end of the arc of the show, it wasn't even an issue. It wasn't even happening. No one was even talking about it. And I remember watching this video that Tamisha shared and going, girl, what the hell are you talking about? Like, nobody is talking about this. Even Candy, when they interviewed her at the end and they, made reference to it, and she was like, oh, honey, that's just not ladylike behavior. Even Candy is not invested in the fight anymore. But to me, and this is my point, Tamisha very clearly showed me that there is a war going on within her body. Now, I don't know her, and I could be assuming things that aren't true. And certainly it's a manufactured reality show, so there's going to be some, elevation of some more dramatic stuff just for effect. But it was very clear to me that Tamisha went to the trouble to write, produce, and release a video and a song all based around this beef that she had on a made-up reality TV show. And she's the only one that's talking about it. This is what I mean. The war is in the body. And if you were raised in trauma and conflict, it makes sense that that's how you would navigate the world. But we are at a point where it is possible through your own healing journey to move across the threshold of that history. You do not have to carry that history with you anymore. And even as someone who has worked through my own trauma and knows what it means to claim I survived, even the role of the survivor is rooted in the trauma. Just because I've learned how to keep myself from getting triggered and keep the trauma monsters at bay doesn't mean that I've left that reality. I'm still living in the trauma house. I've just got really good at making sure that my trauma is not activated. Guess what? You can move out of the house if you want to. You don't have to be connected to that history of trauma at all anymore if you don't want to. Now, this is not a free pass from healing. I'm not saying you can just pretend it didn't happen. No, you got to do the work. But once you've done the work, the final step in the healing journey is to realize, oh, I don't need to be healed around this anymore. And in fact, I don't even need to keep this as a part of my identity. Which brings me to my next point. Meditate with your eyes open. I got this message probably about this time last year. Osiris came in during meditation, and the lighted ones too. Like one of the first things that they said when they came back was meditate with your eyes open. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? Meditate with my eyes open? I don't understand what that means. And they said, too often when you go into meditation, you use that as a means to escape the reality, right? You say, oh, I need to feel good. I want to find peace. I want to find ease. I want to, release this tension or this anxiety, and things right now are feeling too intense. So I'm going to meditate and I'm going to go somewhere else where it feels better. There's nothing wrong with that. But here's the question. Are we using our spiritual tools and practices to escape, check out, or go away? Or are we using them to come more deeply into our experience? If I'm feeling angry and I decide to meditate and move into that anger so I can really feel it and experience it and release it, that's one thing. But if I'm deciding to meditate because I don't want to be angry and it feels bad, so I want to feel good, it's sort of like I'm trying to dig this tunnel from angry, underneath to feeling good. It doesn't work anymore. I understand why we do this. This is a leftover mechanism of the initiate lifetimes, right? When we were in the initiate phases in a temple or an ashram or somewhere in a sequestered location, we had to sequester and exclude the outside world because we had to remember how to connect and open up. And, hundreds, thousands, even, 75 years ago, we were in an environment energetically that was much more dense. So it did take a little bit more effort and work to be very focused and deliberate and sort of close ourselves off to find that connection. Interestingly, this lockdown in many ways has been an initiation for those who needed it. But this is where we are. We are no longer in the initiate lifetimes anymore. We are no longer on the initiate's path. This is a lifetime of mastery. And mastery requires you to live it in the present now and now and now. No shutting your eyes to journey away, kids. The human experience requires a physical lens. So meditate with your eyes open means whatever tools you use to manage your energy and your internal landscape, use them now to move more closely into self and into spirit, rather than trying to circumvent things that make you uncomfortable or that you just don't want to deal with. Because this time around, those of us who are in the mastery lifetime, we're essentially getting a tasting menu of everything that we have experienced. And I know that you know what I'm talking about because it's like these little pops and these little blips of these old lifetimes, these old patterns, these old experiences. They just kind of pop in. It's like a flash bomb. It catches us by surprise or catches our awareness. There's a big experience now of sort of understanding, letting it out, and then integrating it. Even just a blip can be enough for us to remember and re-record an entire lifetime. And within this experience, there is going to be the dark, dark, dark shadow stuff, and there's going to be the light, 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 bright stuff, and there's going to be everything in between. Fear none of it. You've already mastered it. You've already done it. It's just that now it's here to remind you. It's like when you reach that final pinnacle of education, you're just bringing everything that you have ever learned with you and figuring out how it serves you in this way. The reason that we are having these experiences now, those of us who are, this is our mastery lifetime, we're doing this for the benefit of who is to come next. The experiences that we have, when we allow them to move through our physical vessel, then they are downloaded into the earth grid so that future generations will have access to the experiences as a library of understanding. Write this down. Until it is lived, it is not recorded in the history of humanity. You can't think about it. You have to do it. You have to live it. Thinking about it is the beginning. Right? It always starts as the transphysical impulse first. But at some point when it reaches physicality, I need to stop thinking about this Sharpie and make the Sharpie. See, you need to stop thinking about being angry and let yourself be angry. You need to stop thinking about doing that thing and just go fucking do it. So when we're talking about the darkness and the shadow, and as an aside here, over the past couple of months, as I've been in this deep, deep churning experience of transformation and the death of all these old selves, I've seen a lot of dark, dark stuff come home to roost. This is how I see the darkness now. It's just a kid who got lost. I remember when I was a kid and I was maybe, 8 or 9-ish, maybe, I don't remember how old I was, about that age. And I went to the mall with my mom and I somehow got lost and I was terrified. Suddenly this shopping mall that I had been going to as long as I could remember, it was the shopping mall that we used to go for back to school shopping and Christmas shopping. It was the closest big town that had a mall. And I was terrified. Suddenly, this world that I was very familiar with was scary and uncertain, and I didn't know who anyone was, and I was terrified, and all I wanted was my mom. That's how I see shadow. That's how I see entities. That's how I see demons. That's how I see monsters. In the demon realm, a demon isn't scary, it's just your next door neighbor. So when I see an entity or a darkness or a shadow come to me, I don't banish it anymore. Let me tell you this right now, and maybe for some of you this is going to feel a little bit weird, and maybe I'll get some heat for this. Frankly, it's of no concern. Stop banishing shit. This is the equivalent to a leaf blower. Banishing your stuff and just sending it away is laziness. It is. You're essentially just taking your stuff and blowing it across the street. Well, now it's someone else's shit to deal with. And guess what? They're going to wake up tomorrow morning and they're going to go, this isn't mine. And they're going to just blow it back and forth across the street. Don't be a leaf blower, girl. Be a healer. Be a source of light. So when the darkness comes in, see it as a little kid who's lost. And your only job is to send it home to love. So what I do when I see a shadowy aspect or some darkness come in now, I welcome. I say, come on, boo, we're doing this. Come here. Come here, come here, come here, come here. I seal it in love. I seal my field in light. I call in whichever avatar I want to work with, whichever layer of self I'm working with, and I ask them to send it home to love. Send it to the perfect place for it. Stop banishing shit. You're just making it someone else's work. So where we are now is we are moving into this very real quantum experience where things can happen in the blink of an eye. And so a lot of us are fighting against memories of initiate lifetimes where things did take a long time. It is no longer going to take as long as you think, my dear. I promise you that all you have to do is allow yourself to be really clear and honest with yourself about what wants your attention. Let it in, observe, acknowledge, feel whatever needs to be done so that it can go, so that it can go home. Because sequestering and separating yourself now actually prolongs the process. And I'm wondering if our shady little tribal members aren't aware of this, because it is no surprise to me that this whole beer bug lockdown fiasco is happening at this moment in time, because keeping us separate makes it harder for the collective to shift. Did you hear that? Keeping us separate makes it harder for the collective to shift. And I'm not just talking about physical, geographical separation. I'm talking about perceived separation. I'm talking about mental, emotional, energetic separation. Got to come back together. And it all begins with coming home first. So, excuse that slurp. Now I want to talk about healers and healing. So if you are a practitioner, this is going to be of great interest to you. This, of course, is applicable to everybody. But what I am seeing with healers and healing is that new paradigms are healing are open and available. The difference with these new paradigms is that they require a balance of our masculine and our feminine. If your practice has come to a screeching halt and you're wondering where all the clients are, most likely it's because there's some little deficiency in either the masculine or the feminine, because what I see is that most of us, myself included, we've been only healing with one half. We either have a very strong masculine essence or a very strong feminine essence in our healing, but very seldom have I ever experienced a healer who holds both, and this is why it is important. The portal to ascension is the child. And the child can only exist, can only enter the biology when the masculine and the feminine are in balance. For those of you who are spiritual or sacred geometry nerds like me, this is what the vesica piscis is. This is the first cell division. This is the masculine and the feminine coming together in balance to create the opening where the child emerges. I do not believe that life begins at conception. I believe that life begins with the first cell division, because that is the portal that allows the soul, the child, to enter. And it can only enter the biology, our body, and it's the child that does the healing now. This is the thing. You're not healing with the masculine, you're not healing with the feminine, you're letting the child heal, because that is the purity of self. And the purity of self can only be present, the child can only enter when the masculine and feminine are in balance. And it is the child that heals us from within. So that's the portal. We've done this emotionally. We've talked about the masculine and feminine. We've done it energetically. We've done it mentally, right? We've done our work, but now it's balancing it in the body. It is literally happening in the body. The child signifies the return, and we are being asked to embody, literally embody that innocence. The question to keep yourself on track with this is, how are you childlike in the world? How do you arrive at your sessions? Are you allowing yourself to arrive at your sessions with childlike innocence and presence? Because the feminine internalizes to feel and understand, and that's a version of healing. And the masculine externalizes to create boundaries and space that reflect that inner understanding, and that's a version of healing. But in order for them, when they are in balance, this creates something called interdependency. This is not codependency, which is another thing we're moving away from. This creates interdependency, and interdependency is what brings balance, or balance brings interdependency. And once we have balance and interdependency, that's when the child enters. And then we create a self-sustaining system. Moving on. A few questions for my healer friends. Are you carrying your client's stuff? I used to do it all the time. Are you waking up in the morning and worrying and thinking about and wondering about your clients? You've picked up some of their stuff. So the question is, who's in the chair when you're in session? Who's doing the healing? I learned very early in this journey. I had a mentor who told me, do not use your own energy to heal. You will completely deplete yourself. And I get the sense that this is why so many of us healers have had burnout or depletion, especially adrenal fatigue or physical fatigue. It's because we're only using half of the self to do all the work. When the masculine and the feminine are in balance, you don't do anything. You be, and it is the child that emerges and does the work. The energy does the work. And in order for these new paradigms of healing to open up, we need to use both sides. And we actually don't need to use. All we need to do is bring them in balance and allow the child to move in, and the child does the healing. A few little things here that I want to talk about in terms of the language that we use, the language that I have been using, and some of the ideas and concepts that we have around healing that are no longer. I've started saying trans-physical as opposed to non-physical, and I got this nudge. It started maybe about a month ago now, and every time I would say non-physical or write it, I would get this little nudge of like, hey, hey, hey. So finally I was like, hey, okay, what is this? Like every time I say the word non-physical, you guys get a little like, hey, what, we don't like, So I asked what's going on, and they said the word non-physical creates a psychological barrier. What it does is it tells the mind that there's, me and the physical, and then the non-physical's up there or out there or something else. So trans-physical says, and this is what Osiris said, and the lighted ones, they said, we're not non-physical, we're trans-physical. We could be in physicality if we wanted to. We've just reached a point in our evolution and our journey where we are no longer required to be in form. So trans-physical to me feels more like, okay, so it's just energy in a different shape. It's just me in a formless form. Karma. Nope, no karma. Done. Karma was a part of the 3D human operating system and was required for us as we were going through this school of learning. Once you reach this lifetime of mastery, and now where we are as we are transforming into this new version of the human, we don't need karma anymore. No reincarnation, same thing. That loop of like, you didn't get it, now you gotta come back and be a human again. Nope. No 7-point chakra system. The chakras are collapsing. I saw this actually start in like what year was it? 2015 or 2016. I had a couple of clients who I would see their chakras just collapse. And then all of a sudden it would be like either one big ball of energy or 3 larger balls of energy. I had a colleague at the time who used to be a friend. We're no longer in touch. And he was also seeing this in his work as well. I got so much heat for this, I can't even tell you. And at the time I was like, okay, I know this is real because I see it. And my guides at the time were like, well, people aren't used to it. And surprisingly, it was all spiritual people who attacked me. And they were all old spiritual people who attacked me. So to me, it's just like, well, that's just old dogma. That's old paradigm stuff, and you're just bowing at the altar of your old ideas, and you aren't able to give them up. So even the geometry of the word chakra is limiting. It is built upon limitation. The idea of the 7-point chakra system in and of itself is a limitation because it's only relevant to the human body. So in 3D, there had to be limits. We needed some sort of limitation for our energy and to understand it, because can you imagine if every human alive on the planet right now had their instant manifestation gifts intact? Can you imagine if we all had a Harry Potter wand? I don't think so. No. What else? So yes, all of these old ideas, the chakra system, the reincarnation, karma, these were necessary at one point because it's like a scuba suit. If I'm going to go walking on the bottom of the ocean in an environment that I am not native to, I need some hardware to help me survive. Same thing. I'm a, eternal, infinite, formless being. So this experience is not necessarily my native one. So I need some hardware to help me make it down here. And that's what the material self was. That's what the 7-point chakra and karma and reincarnation, all of those were beautiful, wonderful mechanisms, but we've outgrown them. We don't need those training wheels anymore. So these systems, these ideas of chakra and reincarnation and whatever the other one I was talking about, they are necessary for some people still. And if souls have chosen to remain in this 3D matrix of reality, then they will still have access to them and they will still be necessary for them. As we're talking about this new healing modality and these new healing paradigms that are available to us now and opening up, these are some key words to think about: sound, light, color, vibration, and interdependency. These are the keys of the new healing realms. And interdependency doesn't mean I sacrifice or surrender my authority or who I am. It doesn't mean that we're latched on and that I can't be without you. No, interdependency is like, well, this plant needs me to water it, and when I water it, it gives me all these beautiful flowers or food or whatever. It's the same thing. When I do my work and I face myself and I let myself go through what I'm going through, then I bring balance to the system and the child can enter, and now I'm a much more dynamic healer. And when I'm working with the frequencies of sound, light, color, vibration, they feed me, and then I can process and share them with you, and then you in turn get to feed more of that beauty back into the system, right? So it's interdependency. It's seeing that we are all part of this. This is how I love to think of interdependency. Think of the wave in the ocean. The wave can't exist without the ocean, and the ocean needs the wave so it can know itself. Finally, what I am going to share with you was a card that I pulled. The Psychic Tarot, I don't do Oracle card readings really anymore, but the Psychic Tarot is my favorite deck, and I still use it for some time to time for myself, and every once in a while in a client session, I'll get the nudge to pull a card, and I did get the nudge to pull a card while I was putting this video together. So this is for all of us, the Transformation card. Now, in the traditional Tarot, the Psychic Tarot is based upon the traditional Tarot, and this is one of the major arcana, and in the traditional Tarot, the Transformation card is the Death card. Death is a beautiful, beautiful experience for us right now, because death is the portal to the next world. Death is the portal to the next experience, the next life. And when we are having a death within ourselves, right, like all the death that I've been experiencing internally as these old layers of Andrew just collapse and die, the death of the layers of self is the portal to the more clarified version of you. When you let all that you aren't die and you let it go, then who you really are can start to emerge more greatly and can really root itself and descend into form with you. But it can't if you're still hanging on to the old stuff, because the old stuff is what's taking up space. And here's the thing, and I know for many of you who have a history of trauma, or any of you who have a history of trauma, that oftentimes it can feel really terrifying to go back into those old spaces and to let those old thoughts or experiences or beliefs, sort of come to the surface and acknowledge them. But this is the beautiful thing about that, is when we finally release those layers that are still rooted in that trauma, even the survivor, the trauma collapses and leaves, and the wisdom stays. And that's the point. When you let yourself live it, what you are putting into the libraries of the planet are the wisdom that you gained from the horrible things that happened. So in a sense, it's a way of making sense of why it happened, to say, oh, because now I know something that I wouldn't otherwise have known. And now I get to infuse it into the record of all that is and all that has been and all that will be, so that the next round of people don't have to go through it to learn what I learned. So let it die. This month, whatever wants to let it die, let it die. By all means, do not try to hang on to it, because that's just going to make it last longer. And do everything you can not to hide out from your experience. Do everything you can not to sequester, because that's only going to prolong it. Thank you so much for watching this. This has been a joy to be able to share this with you. I know it was a lot of information, so, take some notes, review your notes, listen again if you need to. And if you need me, you can find me, andrewmartin.energy. I'm available for bookings and sessions and all of that. Sign up for my newsletter. That's where I share everything. Thanks for watching. I love you.